Welcome to Dominate Your Day, the podcast for corporate leaders, visionaries, and founders who are ready to lead from within. I'm Dana Williams, and after 25 years as a corporate leader myself, I've discovered a powerful truth. The next level of your leadership isn't about more doing, it's about more being. Today, you'll hear from a difference maker who's learned that everything they needed to transform their team and their organization was already within them. They've stopped chasing external validation and started leading from their authentic strengths, their purpose, and their values. This is what I call the internal revolution. And it is exactly what I dive deep into in my upcoming book, Internal Revolution. Lead authentically and build your personal brand from within. So let's get started and dive right in. Welcome back to Dominate Your Day. Today's guest is Sarah Noll Wilson. Sarah and I had an amazing conversation, a lot of connection points about authenticity, about real conversations, about change in the workplace and leadership. Sarah is a on-demand keynote speaker. She's a researcher. She's a contributor to Harvard Business Review. She's written a book called Don't Feed the Elephants. I'm not going to tell you about it right now because she talks in depth about what it's about. But really what she's doing is she's closing the gap between what leaders intend to do and the actual impact they make. Welcome to the show, Sarah Noll Wilson. Sarah, I'm so excited to have this conversation with you today. You have an interesting story. And before we get started, I want you just to tell the audience as you come into this space about how you found this unique opportunity to serve others in a totally different occupation that you started out in. Because you were like in the theater, right?
I was.
And acting, and
Yeah.
here you are now, a keynote speaker and leadership researcher and author, executive coach. What happened?
I mean, at the core of everything, it's just studying humans. It just shows up differently, right? No, I started as I got my undergraduate degree in theater performance and theater education. And something I didn't share while we were chatting beforehand is my theater education degree wasn't teaching theater, but using theater as an educational tool. So I did a lot of work with, you see the connection there, like that. Feels like
I see the connection.
Direct. And I needed a day job so that I could do my theater at night and have benefits. So I did what every good person in Des Moines, Iowa does. I got a job in insurance. and that's when I got introduced to the world of training, technical writing, leadership development. But the thing that I realized is that so many of the people who were doing leadership development had never led people.
Oh, isn't that scary?
It's terrifying. Well, most managers are accidental managers, right?
That's true.
That's true. So I became really fascinated with that. And I just was like, if this is something I want to explore, then I should manage and lead as many teams in as different situations as I can so I can get that experience, and found my way into getting my master's in leadership development, then leading leadership development, building the companies on the side, and then starting my company almost 8 years ago.
Wow. So you're 8 years in. And I love how you said in the green room, you said, we're just kind of evolving and we're working on our brain, and I think that's one of the things as an entrepreneur is you're never done. You're always adjusting and always looking back a little bit, looking forward of what is it that I'm creating right now that the world needs and the impact.
Yeah, you might appreciate this metaphor. I like to think of it as somebody who wears glasses for people who are listening to this.
You look very studious that way.
Yeah, it's all, it's just so I can see. But I think of it like an eye exam, because when I first started, I thought I needed to have everything figured out. I needed to have my niche figured out. I needed to have my audience figured out. And then I realized, it's just like a constant evolution of when you get your eyes tested, is it 1 or is it 2? Is this clear or is this clear? And then you're like, no, it's not 2. Can you give me 2 again? Oh, no, it's actually 2. Okay, is it 2 or is it 3? And I feel like that gave me permission to allow myself to just let the evolution happen and be okay that, it has evolved, and that's okay.
So what took you from corporate to starting your own business? That was a big leap.
It was, yes, and um,
Uh-huh.
in the spirit of improv, yes,
Yes,
and
Sarah and I talked in the green room about improv, and I said, "Oh, that works in business
totally
too."
does. Um, I started speaking and facilitating workshops. I mean, I've been facilitating in some capacity for like since I was a 19-year-old. And,
Amazing. Yeah.
and so I always knew that that was the path. But so I was always doing things on the side. But the thing that really became the transition is I worked for an insurance company. It's called ROG Legal. And I had the privilege of working under two really amazing HR leaders, two women, one who's no longer with us, unfortunately.
Mm.
And we made this fundamental shift in how we approached learning. We called it develop the whole, not just the role. So develop the whole person, right? Which is what I love about you and the work you do, and
Thank you.
building up the strengths. And so for about 6 years, we did some very, what I would describe at the time, very progressive things around mental health. I mean, now it's sort of become the norm, but then it was like no one was doing that. And helping people get clear about their why, and helping them think about their impact, and helping them rethink development, and how do we have a more human-centered leadership approach instead of just profit-driven. And it was so transformational for the organization and for the team members that I found myself going, I wonder if I could test this out with other companies. And that is what ultimately made the leap. But I will say this, just logistically, for people who might be listening who are either like in the space or not, I was incredibly fortunate to be able to sort of build the company while I still was employed, and then was able to move part-time and then eventually on my own. So it was a softer landing, I think,
Then just because
like
a lot of people are thinking about that. They've either gotten laid off, or they're looking for another opportunity, or they're not in the right spot.
Yeah.
And so that is, and often something I hear in coaching is they're thinking about, how do I start my own business? So it's not an easy landing for some if you haven't had that time to just do a side hustle and check it out and say, is this the thing I'm interested in doing?
Yeah.
So one of the things I see in your content a lot is about the word beautiful complexity of humans.
Yeah. Beautiful humans.
What does that mean to you?
I love humans. Like
Too.
they're sometimes, so what does that mean to me? I've never had to define that. The way I would define it is humans are beautifully predictable and we're beautifully unpredictable. And like we have layers and complexities. And particularly when we're talking about working with leaders who have an incredible amount of influence over how people feel about themselves, how their mental health and their physical health is just understanding that humans, we're not these simple, we don't fit into a 4-quadrant box. We're not these oversimplified, things. We're not machines. And sometimes there's what I would lovingly call unnecessary stress and frustration and suffering in the workplace. Because we get frustrated when people show up in very human ways, and we fight against our humanity instead of understanding like, nope, this is a very normal reaction to this situation, and now how do we help them recover from it?
I love that. And I think some of the, I think perfection is not reality, and humans are not, but we're all beautifully human.
Yeah.
Right. We're just perfectly human.
Yeah. And we're complicated. Like, and the reason I
very
say
complicated.
so the reason I say complicated isn't to say, oh, we can't figure ourselves out or each other out, but just like there's layers to all of us. Even the person who is like somebody you might go, oh gosh, like you've oversimplified them. Like they have fears, they have wishes, they have trauma, they have, right? Like we all have this complexity. And I don't want people to feel overwhelmed by that. I want especially leaders to like embrace that of like, I say it a lot. We're just beautifully complex humans.
I love that. And so you've written, let's talk a little bit about your book,
Yeah.
Don't Feed the
Yeah.
Elephants. What inspired the title? And what are the elephants that show up most in teams today, do you
So
see?
what inspired when I was studying for my master's in leadership development and studying adaptive cultures, the characteristic, one of the top characteristics, and we know this through psychological safety, right, and all that research, one of the top characteristics of an adaptive culture was one where the elephants could be freed, called out. They called it called out. I thought that was too aggressive. I'm like, let's just free it. They don't want to be in the room. Like, let's just let them go. But what I realized is that I had never at that point in time, so sort of in my early 30s, I had never in that point in time ever worked on a team where that was the norm. And then I also realized I had never had a relationship where that was the norm, where we talked about the hard stuff.
The hard
Because
stuff.
you know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like, we didn't
Right.
talk about the hard stuff. We didn't talk about the emotionally charged conversations. I lovingly say that, in my family, I grew up learning how to, like, we laughed hard, we loved hard, and when things got hard, we left, right? We just like
Mm-hmm.
avoided it. And
Mm-hmm.
so the what I learned in my research and working with people and just thinking about it is a slight reframe on the idea of the elephant in the room. Because sometimes people will think, oh, like, I always say, like, they call out the elephant and point at their boss, or like Joe over there, like,
Mm-hmm.
who's the elephant in the room. And how I like to reframe it is the elephant is created when we avoid acknowledging something that's creating a barrier. Because if
Mm-hmm.
I do something that maybe is harmful, or if I do something that's creating a rub or not, like, or getting in our way, and you're like, and you call me in, so to speak, right? If you say, hey,
Mm-hmm.
Sarah, can we talk about that? I don't know what your intention was, but this was your impact. The conflict is still there, but the elephant doesn't exist because we're actually having a conversation. So the elephant gets created when we're avoiding, which is why the title of the book is Don't Feed the Elephant. Like, don't give it peanuts. Don't invite it in. Don't, like how do we have those
Mm-hmm.
conversations? And
Mm.
um and so what are the common types of elephants? There's so many, right? The quintessential is the avoidant. This is very technical terms, Dana.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
The imagiphant, right? Like, we imagine it to be the blameophant, the nudgeophant, the sarcastophant. The one of my favorites that a client came up with, because we like to have them come up with their own, is he said, I think I feed an optimophant. And I was like, say more.
He's optimistic, or is he?
Yeah. So he said, I I'm realizing that I used to think of my optimism as like a strength, but I realize that sometimes I use it to avoid the work because I'm just hopeful it'll work out, but I don't do anything to actually help it work out. And he's
Mm.
like, so I actually think I lean on my optimism sometimes as an avoidant tactic.
What a great
Right?
observation.
I was like,
It's kind of like what we talk about with strengths. They can get in your, they can be,
mm-hmm,
a help you, but they can also hinder
mm-hmm,
you.
mm-hmm.
And so him being able to talk about it
Mm-hmm.
as an elephant is a very creative and come up with its own
Yeah, I
name.
know. I
I
let
love
people
that.
love it. They'll like slip me notes like, hey, for your next book, here's the grenade event. Here's the gaslight event.
So what's a fun, or it doesn't have to be fun, but what's a memorable story
Mm,
from the book that continues to resonate with readers?
that's a great one. It interestingly, it's a story I talk about with my relationship with my husband that gets reflected back to me the most. Um, and and essentially, uh, the situation is we were frustrated or fighting about something. I don't know. We weren't fighting. I was frustrated with something, and I fell back on my kind of just survival mechanism, which is I'm going to shut down, I'm going to pout, and I'm going to
Mm.
go to bed mad, which I'm actually very pro go to bed mad, just not doing it passive aggressively because our body needs time to process the chemicals.
Right.
And he, my husband is such a gift. And he was like, hey, like, we can't, in our house, we got to be talking about stuff.
Hmm.
And we had this really beautiful conversation. And that story is the one that I feel like has been reflected back to me over and over, whether that is, oh, that's how my husband and I are, or my partner and I, or gosh, I realize that it's never been safe in my house to have those kind of
Hmm.
conversations, or right, like, so that's interesting. It's a really great question. But that's the one anyway that gets reflected back to me the most, for sure.
And it's that probably that hunger for a authentic, deep, real relationship. And for those that probably are asking about it, if they don't have that, it's like, well, how do I get that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Where does that come from?
Yeah.
And so some of the skills that we talk about in the workplace always transfer over
Yeah.
to your personal. I mean, it's not, you don't have two lives, right? So that's interesting that that one's resonating the most.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I was just let me say this one last thing, and is
yeah,
none of us are born knowing how to be in relationship.
right.
We aren't. No, it's not like some natural skill, because even in this dynamic of us having our first conversation together, the skills we're both using are a little bit different than what we use with people we've known for a while, which is different than
Right.
when somebody's grieving, or when somebody's hangry, or when whatever the situation is. And so I think that one of the things that it's important for us to remember is this is just a lifelong practice of figuring out how to be in relationship, not just with other people, but with ourselves, which is why your new book is really exciting.
Well, and I think it's that what I like to talk about is emotional recognition.
Yeah.
So I'm coming to work, I'm getting myself ready for work. What am I thinking today? What am I feeling?
Yeah.
What am I bringing into this space?
Yeah.
And then we're talking about all the space, the space that you're creating for all the different needs in the room. And how to manage through that, and how to manage through courageous conversations.
Yeah.
So let's go there.
Yeah.
What I can feel it just from what I've read about your book and what I've read about you, just having these deep moments with humans that are real.
Yeah.
How do you create that space?
Like in the context of the work we do, or just in the context of
Yeah,
like relationships?
I think in the context of what you're doing, like at work, when people they're trying to go through this uncertainty and complex time right now, and there's a lot of changes going on, and they're trying to manage themselves and manage their teams. And so what is your advice, and what have you found that works?
I mean, sometimes I think we shy away from speaking about the real stuff, and shy away from just even like what you just said. Sometimes, maybe facilitators or speakers or leaders want to come in and they want to like, let's be really motivational. And it's like, yeah, this sucks, right? Can we just name that this is really heavy? Like, I don't know how you all are feeling, but like, I'm exhausted for you. And so like being present with the reality of the pain doesn't mean that we're dwelling on it. It's just like,
Right.
I also think that, and this is just a non-negotiable, is you have to walk your talk, right? You've used the word authenticity quite a bit. And we know from like the world of trust research that authenticity is one of the 3 cornerstones of trust. Like, are you who you say you are? Because we've all been with people, we've all worked with people, and if we're being really honest, we've all had moments ourselves where we didn't show up, and people have really good bullshit detectors, part of my language, but like, and I think the other thing for me is really recognizing, embracing, and speaking to the fact that we're all fallible humans. I study this, I live this, I think about this. Like it's a life purpose for me to have higher quality conversations, and I still get it wrong, and I still miss the mark, and I still, like, and yet I can recover from that, and I can repair. So it's like, it's being able to have that intellectual humility with people of like, hey, I know I'm the one up here. Let me tell you how I messed it up real bad yesterday with my niece, or whatever the case might be. Yeah.
But what was it in your childhood or in your work life or that created this passion for these real conversations?
I feel like I spent a lot of years in therapy unpacking that one. So I don't think there's one like origin.
Right.
I was fortunate to be brought up by my parents, who one of their gifts was really seeing people And in particular, making sure you see the people that other people want to ignore. Whether that is talking to somebody on the street, whether that is helping somebody in need. And I was very privileged to witness firsthand the power, basically the gift of being curious with somebody because of how my parents showed up. So there's that's always been in my foundation. And the other piece of it is, what I spoke to earlier, which was seeing the cost to relationships when we would avoid, seeing the cost in the damage when people couldn't have the conversations. And when I say like emotionally charged conversations, that's not necessarily conflict. That could be vulnerability, that could be appreciation, that could be an apology, that could be a whole host of things. And so that was the seed. But where I'm at now is having the privilege of, I don't know, we've worked with over 500 companies now. We get this front row view to humanity. And we see every single day what is possible when people are able to step up and be more present for themselves and others. And how many people, especially in the workplace, have just never really experienced a truly high trusting work environment. And so, like,
isn't that sad?
It's really sad, but you know what I mean? So they can't even create it because they don't even know what it could look like.
Yeah. So what patterns do you see in organizations like that are thriving? What do you see that's different? Like if it's the norm not to build trust and they don't know it, what are the ones that are really thriving? What are you seeing right now?
That's a really great question. This seems very elementary, but the people with the most power genuinely care about their people. I don't know how to say it other than that. That and when I say they genuinely care, I don't mean that they don't want them to not get hurt. Right? Like nobody, like most people wouldn't want that. But I mean, they genuinely, like deeply care about the people that are in their charge, so to speak. And they're very aware of the impact. And I would say that there's a high level of curiosity. It's very much a learning culture, and it's a very much their values are anchored in this like in human first language. So there's that. The flip side of it is, and the ones that are really like what I would call a highly successful organization, understand that it isn't just that. It's also how do we collaborate effectively? How do we leverage each other's gifts? How do we build teams? How do we have how do we collaborate more intentionally? Because so often we tend to, and especially at work, right? We don't tend to focus on relationships until there's a problem. And by then it can be too late. And so the companies, the teams, I would say more likely, that do it really, really well, it comes from the top. And there is a conscious effort to constantly be learning. And when I say learning, I don't mean a book club. I don't mean, I mean doing the work, messing up, making mistakes, having the space to go, this is what I learned. Working with coaches like yourself or myself, right? Like they're doing that deep work, but it always comes back to there's just a genuine care for the people that are in their organization.
And it goes back to that impact that they're bringing, that imprint that they're bringing to the workplace intentionally each day to serve and to help lead. I always say, 90% of a leader's job is developing people. Yeah. And sometimes they're just so used to the executing and the energy comes from other things that it's just hard. And it's hard. Yeah. It's very hard.
It's what's rewarded. It's what they got promoted on. Most people are accidental managers. We promote them because of their technical expertise, and then we're confused when they don't know how to develop people. And and so it's like, but you're spot on that like your job as a leader is ultimately to become irrelevant, is to just develop other people around you and to set them up for success. And that can be really hard. And sometimes people hear that when I say something like, well, if you don't care, well, of course I care. I'm like, I understand that you like care, but there's a difference between like, yeah, I care versus like, I really care about my people. And that's just, people feel that.
I hear that when I read that you like to really talk about closing the gap between intention and impact. Is that what you're talking about there as you're saying that?
100%. Because like we all have moments where we think we hit the mark. We all have moments when we go, oh, that compliment landed, or I didn't realize, we all have those moments where we think, oh, I'm a good person, or I'm this or this. And until we interrogate the ways we have our gaps, the ways they show up, when they show up, how they show up, like that's where we create that intentional impact. Otherwise, we're just leaving it to chance. It's like somebody, sometimes I get pushed on, because I have a provocative perspective of like, I don't assume good intentions. I stay curious and open about intentions. Only because sometimes the idea of assuming good intent isn't applied to everyone. And, and I said, it's not that intentions don't matter. They absolutely do. If you intend it to be malicious, then like, that's a different conversation. But, but the analogy I use is, I've been in a few car accidents in my life and I'm not proud of it. I never intended to cause any of them.
Right.
And yet it happened. And yet that caused the other person stress or time to deal with their insurance, and me the same. And like, it's the same thing for impact. And when you're a leader over people, like this sounds so like woo woo for some people, but I'm like, it's incredibly sacred, because research shows that you have, as a manager, as much influence over their mental and emotional well-being, sometimes more than their spouse or partner. Like, you can shave years off of someone's life. Like, this is what's at stake,
Was there a conversation that a leader had with you that changed your life, or that did something for you?
Oh, yeah. Actually, there's lots of moments. Oh, boy. Which one do I want to like? The one, there's two that's coming up for me real quickly.
Okay.
So one was when I was younger, and I was really struggling because of opportunities. Doors were being opened, then shut, and I was really frustrated. And it was early in my career. And my mentor, she wasn't my direct manager, but she was another manager. I'll never forget. She pulled me aside and said, just remember how did she say it? Your real estate is worth more outside of this company. They're always going to look at you as the like 23-year-old Sarah, not the 33-year-old Sarah. But like, your value will be seen as greater if you go to another company. That was like a real gift.
Wow.
And the one in the last couple of years from one of our clients, because I'm constantly inspired by the people we work with, but this one, it was such a gift. He said, the thing that keeps me up at night, this was a CEO of a large company that was a really challenging industry. He said, the thing that keeps me up at night is knowing that every single person wakes up and they're suffering. And how do I make sure that we don't add to that suffering at work? I was just like, whoa, like there was just something profound about that.
Yeah. It was a he, right?
It was a he. Yeah.
Yeah. And he had empathy, probably.
Incredible.
To feel what they felt.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That just shows you the power right there of that. I always heard when you were saying that, reminding me when people left, when I was in corporate and people left, the question is, are you leaving your leader?
Yeah.
Or are you leaving the company for something better?
Yeah. And it's
are you going to something better, or are you leaving something here because you just can't manage it anymore?
Yeah. Or is it both?
Yeah, could be both. Maybe be able to say that and be able to, and I thought, oh, that's awesome. So how do you personally reset? Because you're feeding and listening and coaching, and as coaches, we kind of hear a lot.
Yeah.
And be curious a lot. So what is it that refuels you?
It's, a conversation I had with a fellow consultant. And she used the term resourcing yourself. And I
love
love that. That was a game changer for me of what do you do to resource yourself? And I will say this is a conversation for another day. But I've had, like many people, I've had to really work on my relationship with rest. And I've had to unlearn a lot, a lot. And so ways that I resource myself, you know, one, if I am starting to feel a little crispy, or if I am, it's my technical term for
Crispy.
feeling
I
a
love
little
it.
burnt out. If I'm feeling a little
Yeah.
crispy,
Oh, that's a good term. I haven't heard that one.
just like I'm just a little crispy. I'm not burnt
Crispy
yet, but
right
I'm just
now.
like I can, you know. And for me, I'm very tuned into my body, so it'll show up in like anxiety dreams, or I'll notice my heart races a little bit more, or I just like I feel like almost my physical body's like I'm running a sprint, and so then I like that's my cue that I need to just try to shut down, whether that's resting. And when I say resting, I mean I'm canceling all my client meetings and I'm just sleeping, and I just need to reset. Sometimes it's I need to do outside in things, because if I can't think my way out of it, then like a really hot shower, going for a really nice long walk, being outside. I will say this, one of the things my colleagues and I are really passionate about as we build this company is building it for humans. And so one of the things that we all like really try to lean into is being intentional about those ways we resource ourselves. This weekend I went on a Girl Scout camping trip for adult women with my sisters, and we horseback rode, and we ate Oreos and peanut butter, and we did ropes course, and we're all sore. We're so sore. And it was
How
like
fun.
amazing. So sometimes it's little things and sometimes it's big things. Sometimes it's just as simple as putting the phone away and snuggling with my dog. And my husband is so fantastic when it comes to like, I think you can just go a little slower today, you know, like,
Yeah.
and being okay with that. So I'm in a much better place with that now, but sometimes old habits are hard to break.
It's kind of nice to have that voice of that partner.
Yeah.
Could be an accountability partner. It could be your spouse that's kind of just checking in on you throughout the day or through it. And one of my editor, her husband says, I love this. He's from Norway. He says, are you satisfied with your day? Instead of, how was your
I love
day? He
that.
says, are you satisfied with your day? And I'm like,
I love that.
isn't that cool?
It's, well, you'll appreciate this. One of the things, oh, and I'm forgetting her name. She's actually, she does productivity coaching, but
Oh,
not in the way that you think. And because the way she defines productivity is, did you do what you intended to do? So if you intended to just sit and read a book, did you do that? That's productive. Did you intend to just snuggle with your dog? Then that's productive. Did you intend to, and her, you know, it's, I mean, we all like a lot of people talk about the being or the doing, and that's
yeah.
something that my husband Nick and I, it's like, well, how do you want to be today? Like, how do
I
we want to
love
be
that.
this weekend? So I love, that's such a gift you're giving me of like, are you satisfied with your
Satisfied
day?
with your day.
It's so
Yeah. But
fantastic.
then you had to set up an intention for the day to be satisfied with it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
I
and
love
to
that.
say, oh, I did what I wanted to do. I think so many people were just reacting and not and living in default. I know I
100%.
was, and there's some days that happens, but it's really trying to live by design and what we're designed to do.
Yeah.
So, as we get ready to close out, I'm curious about what you're curious about next. You mentioned something early in the green
Yeah.
room that you're thinking about. Can you share with the audience what that is?
I am on this hyper focused research of repair in relationships, thinking about repair in the workplace, thinking about what does that look like from a leadership perspective, and really just exploring how sometimes we talk about or think about repair as these big moments that need to be covered over or brought back together, and how there's so many little micro moments that happen. There's so many little micro moments. I mean, I just had one yesterday that I'm like, oh, I need to go back and be like, I was thinking about that. And I know that that wasn't that big of a deal, but I realized I did say you should run with it. And then I stepped in, and I need to own that, because like, that's yours. And this idea of repair is particularly, I don't know, it's particularly tender, because a lot of people have loved ones in their life that they're still in their lives. They still love, but there's just a little distance between them, right? There's a little space there. And so I've been doing a lot of work and research, and I think I've heard collected stories from over 50 people now, and I'm working on interviewing more. And one of the things that I like, one of the definitions of repair I love comes from the Gottman Institute, which is, it's not about always resolving what happened, but it's about choosing each other again. And there's something really beautiful about that. Like my mentor, Paul, he would say, if you think of the word, it's to pair up again, to repair. And there's something really beautiful about that. So that's my latest exploration.
You know, I think what is cool that's starting to come into the culture right now after a couple of years of AI and all that is this whole human touch, human feeling, human value, human connection, more live events, more in this whole repair, restore, and really take care of your relationships. And its humanness is so fleeting, and life is fleeting. And so be able to think of it that way. I love that. Be able to live each day saying, did I do a good job today? Was I satisfied with today?
Was I satisfied? Like, did I, was I productive because I did what I intended to do? Like, there, you know, are there needs that are unmet? Are there all of that? I do see that both results from the pandemic, as you mentioned, and also like all the technology and AI, is the moments of presence with somebody stand out even more. Because we have more moments without them.
That's right.
You know, and our relationships are everything. Like, all of our success is dependent on our relationships.
It's powerful. It's a powerful time of reopening that opportunity. So I love that you're doing this research and being curious about it. Are you thinking this is going to bring on another book?
Yeah. No, we're my colleague and I are working on a book of like the conversations leaders need to have when leading change. That's the one we're tooling with now. But I do want to write about that one, just because the ache of disconnection and rupture is so universal.
Yes.
You know, and painful, and the stories of when people are either able to repair or to accept that it's not, you know, I mean, that's part of the, like, sometimes it's recognizing that this relationship isn't going to be what I had hoped it would be. And I have to go through that grieving process, but then there can be something really powerful on the other side of it. But there's just some universality. I don't know what the word is. Like, it's very universal. And, you know, when we think about like the conversations we avoid and the elephants in the room, I would argue that leaders who know how to effectively repair, that's one of the biggest contributors to creating a psychologically safe environment.
And especially through change, as you talked about the conversations through change, because change is always going to be with us. Yeah. It's not going away. No. And so it's like, how do we think about change differently and care through the stages of changes and help people through that? So it's when you're talking about those and expectations, I think so many people have different expectations. And one of my favorite sayings is, you know, raise your gratefulness, lower your expectation, because that's what gets us in trouble.
Yeah, sure does.
But the gratefulness comes along, especially during massive change and massive humanity. Oh my gosh, we could go on. We could talk.
This is a treat. Thanks so much for
having me. Isn't it a treat?
Me.
It's a treat to meet you. And oh my gosh, thank you so much for being on today. Sarah, how can our listeners find your book,
Mm-hmm.
find information about your work?
I mean, the easiest way is to go to the website, which is just my name, sarahnollwilson.com, NOLLWILSON. I'm very active on LinkedIn. You can find our book and our companion workbook on Amazon. And but always love to connect with fellow humans.
That's awesome. Well, thank you for being an amazing human and bringing so much impact to the world. We're thrilled you were here today, and can't wait to share you with our group.
I appreciate it.
Thank you. What an incredible conversation. Remember, everything you need to lead with greater impact is already within you. You don't need to be more productive. You just need to be more you. If today's episode resonated, please subscribe and share it with a fellow leader who's ready for their own internal revolution. And if you're ready to discover what's possible when you lead from the inside out, I'd love to create space for that conversation. Head to danawilliamsco.com for resources and to book your free discovery call, where we can explore what you want to achieve for yourself, your team, and your organization. Until next time, keep leading from within.